Hello and welcome to my Binda TV. So for now, I like to look at the daily rap for America. So basically, Donald Trump has called ethnic Somalis that they are garbage. That's what Donald Trump has referred to ethnic Somalis that they are garbage. So what do you think this xenophobic attitudes towards minorities, towards ethnic minorities? So that just amplifies the message of Donald Trump that he is anti-immigrant. Remember, Trump was re-elected in part because he was against mass migration to America. So of course, Donald Trump adherents, Donald Trump supporters point that migration in the southern border, illegal migration in the southern border has dropped by 99.5%. So they say promises kept, promises delivered. That is what Trump supporters say. That is promises kept, promises delivered. So basically, right now, Donald Trump is working hard to make sure that the mass migration, mass deportation comes into effect. So basically, you have Trump arguing with Ilhan Omar, that is the representative from Minnesota. Trump argued with Ilhan Omar basically saying she married her brother in order to get the visa to come to America. So that's the feud between Donald Trump and Ilhan Omar. Of course, remember, Ilhan Omar belongs to that progressive wing of the Democrats. That is the progressive wing of the Democrats that is made up of the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, touted to be a future presidential candidate of the Democratic Party. Of course, that progressive Democrats going head to head with the centrist Democrats. So basically, you have Ilhan Omar belonging to that group, and of course, being an ethnic Somali herself, you'll find that she is being abused by Donald Trump. That is, get the hell out of America, get the hell out of the U.S. Somalia is a cesspool of terrorism, is a cesspool of garbage. That is how Donald Trump describes Somalia. And of course, you will find that Donald Trump is going to be able to you will find that Donald Trump will be able to basically carry out mass migration. Of course, he has banned immigration from 19 countries. That is what Donald Trump has done. He has banned immigration from 19 countries. So basically, Somalia is included in that list. And of course, as someone says that what Donald Trump really wants to do is make America white again. It is not just there was a poll that showed that by the year 2040, whites will become a minority in America, and that could upend America in so many ways. So basically, there was a poll that showed that whites could become a minority in America by the year 2040. So basically, right now, what Ilhan Omar is doing, now what Donald Trump is doing is trying to reassert white dominance in America. Remember, where's America is welcoming of immigrants from throughout the world, whereas immigrants are constantly renew America, but that America was purposely built to be a European satellite state. So that's how America was made. It was made to be a satellite, a European satellite state. So of course, that goes along with the way Donald Trump has said he will ban migration, permanently ban migration from third world countries, and of course, and that will mean only developed European countries will be able to migrate from to America. So basically, Donald Trump is not opposed to immigration per se, but its nature. That is, Donald Trump is not opposed to immigration per se, but basically, Trump wants immigration from nicer countries, white countries like Norway, like Sweden, like Denmark. These are the countries Donald Trump wants immigration from. He doesn't want immigration from these poor third world countries that is bringing a lot of problems in America as he describes it. But of course, America, part of the melting pot of America is that it is a conglomeration of so many ethnic groups. And so you can't find practically someone from every village in the world in America. That is practically you could find someone from every village in America. So that's what makes America really great. And I think if America loses that, then it is going to lose something. And I think what America needs to do is to replace the familial-based immigration with a merit-based immigration. So replace that with a merit-based immigration in which you will have the best and brightest brains from across the world immigrating to America. I think that's what you will find, the best and brightest brains immigrating to America. That's how you will find, that is how you will find America being able to scheme the best talent from across the world. And remember, for America to be at the absolute leading edge of innovation, it needs to attract the best minds. What if America offered a visa to a top high school student in every country in the world? Of course, and this is what the likes of Harvard, MIT, Yale, Princeton do. But remember, Donald Trump banned international students from coming to Harvard. So you can see how that ethnic chauvinism of Donald Trump is costing America to attract the best and brightest minds. Of course, some are also fighting that is the H-1B visa. The H-1B visa is how foreign workers get to work in America. So of course you have some are already fighting that is the H-1B visa be terminated altogether. They say companies are relying on cheap foreign labor in order to be able in order to be able to hire lesser to hire foreign workers so that they can cut down on labor costs and so that undercuts white collar jobs for Americans. You have the Breitbart editor in chief Alex Marlow saying H-1B visa should be abolished. Of course, it was introduced during the Bush era. That is, any willing worker. Of course, I will beg to differ. I will say that immigrants add a lot of vitality to America. Immigrants add a lot of strength to America, and that is why America needs to be able to, and America needs to be able to attract these bright minds in the country so that then they can constantly renew America. And I think if immigrants constantly renew America, then America will be that shining city in the hill. America will be that candle on the table that nobody can hide. And I think you saw with the election of the New York mayor, Zoran Mamdani. Basically, here, Zoran Mamdani is an immigrant from Uganda, and of course, he's Muslim. So, of course, he was elected in, and of course, you have the former president Barack Obama saying that in no other country in the world would his story be possible. The child of an African immigrant and a white woman from Kansas. So basically, how Barack Obama said, in no other country in the world will his story even be possible. So basically, immigration is a thorny issue, but Donald Trump wants immigrants from only nicer countries such as Norway, such as Denmark, such as Sweden. Those are the nice countries Donald Trump wants immigration from. He doesn't want immigration from poor third world countries that are just wreaking havoc on America. And remember, an American senator said, "Since when did America cease to lose its dominant European culture?" You heard an American senator saying, since when did America choose to lose its dominant European culture? So, of course, you get that is going to be a way for that is going to be a way for America to be able to leverage on immigrants. So, I think Donald Trump is not shutting down. I think that is what his supporters want to hear. That is what supporters of Donald Trump want to hear. Remember, Donald Trump, when he descended that down that escalator in April 2015, when Donald Trump descended down that escalator in April 2015, basically he was Donald Trump immediately began the immigrant rhetoric. He said Mexicans are drug lords, rapists, criminals that are coming to destroy our country. And so you had a group of a handful of Trump supporters openly urinating on homeless Mexicans. So you can imagine that is the rhetoric that Donald Trump goes by. So Donald Trump wants to create an America that is white only, and of course, he is pursuing all avenues to be able to create an America that is white only. And I really think America has benefits more than it loses from immigration. I really think America benefits more than it loses from immigration. Of course, you have Donald Trump saying white South Africans are facing persecution. That is, you have Donald Trump saying that white South Africans are facing persecution, and so they need to be able to come to the United States and start a new life. And of course, you have these white South Africans, the so-called Afrikaners. They are bypassing the line from people who are well helped America at itself need. Look at the Afghan refugees. Just because one Afghan refugee went on a rampage and shot a National Guard officer, of course, we pray for the families of those who are affected by the Afghan refugee. But then, of course, condemning all Afghan refugees and saying they will be vetted afresh. Basically, that is going to cause a lot of worries on this Afghan refugees, and of course, Donald Trump, you can be sure, wants to deport these Afghan refugees. Of course, the Biden era they came through in 2021 after America withdrew from Afghanistan, and so this is why I say that America needs to be able to take care of the Afghan refugees. They were the translators for the American army. They were helping American army access very hidden places in Afghanistan. So how then does Donald Trump just give up on the Afghan refugees like that? And so, of course, that is something that I think we need to follow up on. And so, of course, you have Afghan refugees, of course, being vetted afresh. You have white South Africans being welcomed in America with open arms. Of course, I think right now about 2,000 white South Africans have already immigrated. How about 2,000 white South Africans, I think, have immigrated to America, and I think. America just needs to overhaul its immigration system, introduce a merit-based immigration like Australia and Canada, and I think that's how then you will have introduce a merit-based immigration like Australia and Canada. I think that is the higher your academic qualifications and professional experience, the higher your points, and of course that is how you will have immigrants coming to America that are quality immigrants. If America just skimmed off the best university students, those who score a GPA of 3.8 and above. Those were the top of their class. If America schemes of valedictorians and salutatorians, basically America will be in a very good place. But right now, that America is facing persecution, that those immigrants are facing persecution in America, and of course, you'll find that America no longer becomes attractive. And for instance, in India, you had a senator, Howard Dean, you have in India a Senator Howard Dean, a former Democratic senator. I think he sold the presidential ticket in 2004, Howard Dean suggested that basically immigrants from Indian Institute of Technology, graduates of the Indian Institute of Technology, need to be given free visas to come to America. That is, you had Howard Dean say that postulate that immigrants from graduates from the Indian Institute of Technology be given free H-1B visas. And of course, companies like Google rely on talent from Indian Institute of Technology, and I think that's why some people say that a white collar migration to America is also something that needs to be looked at. You have the CEO of Google is a graduate from IT. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, is a graduate from IIT. CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, of course, is a graduate from IIT, you have a CEO of Adobe, CEO of Sun Microsystems, Dean of Harvard Business School, the former and the current Dean of Harvard Business School. They are all graduates of Indian Institute of Technology. And I think right now, has anyone who is the top advisor on immigration issues? We cannot let immigrants, quality immigrants, be banned from coming over to America. I think that way America would be losing its relevance. America would be losing its competitive edge if it lets that is immigrants from these friendly countries be banned from coming over to America. And I think the immigrants are not a threat to America. I think Americans that are doing well in life basically don't view immigrants as a threat. It is the Americans, poor American, especially poor white Americans, that view immigration in very negative terms. They see an immigrant driving a nice car, an immigrant owning a very nice home, and then they say that immigrants are taking over their jobs, immigrants are taking over their schools, their churches, immigrants are taking over their way of life. And I think of course, Donald Trump introduced the gold card. That is a way that basically those who have $5 million and above, I think so. Those who have $5 million and above will be able to immigrate to America, and I think when that is done, and then that is going to attract a lot of investors to America. So we need that. Also, we need a merit-based visa. Of course, Trump is also going to look at the winners of a green card so that they don't come from countries that are banned from immigrants don't come from countries that are banned from setting foot in America. So I think that is the way to go. So basically, that's it. Donald Trump calling Somalis ethnic Somalis garbage, and of course his supporters cheering on, and of course you have ethnic minorities in America really being offended, really not sure what to do. The ICE police might come for them, ICE enforcement officers might come for them. So, of course, that is about immigration. Donald Trump calling ethnic Somalis a garbage, and of course, then there's the issue of the day. Donald Trump returns to gasoline as fuel of choice for cars. Of course, there's been a lot of push for clean energy, and of course, clean energy. And of course, you had Biden place climate policy at the top, and of course, Donald Trump believes climate change is a hoax, and of course, you have those who believe climate change is a hoax, the scientists who believe climate change is a hoax. Cheering on as Donald Trump withdrew from the world, from the Kyoto Protocol, from these energy groups. And of course, Donald Trump is saying, drill, baby, drill. That is what Donald Trump is saying, drill, baby, drill. And so he says there should be a lot of a lot of American independence of energy systems, and of course that is how Donald Trump fell out with Elon Musk. Of course, Elon Musk manufactures Elon Musk manufactures Tesla cars, and of course, Tesla cars, electric cars, conserve that is the environment. They don't have gas emissions, carbon gas emissions, and of course, you have them disagreeing on that. Of course, you have Donald Trump saying that Elon always knew that Donald Trump did not favor electric cars mandate, and of course, Elon Musk having used about $200 million. That is a bad debt to him. He considers that is a bad debt, even as he claims he is still MAGA. Elon Musk claims that he is still MAGA, even as Donald Trump removed electric cars mandates. But of course, then Donald Trump says that he that is SpaceX gets a lot of billions of dollars in government subsidies. That is Elon Musk, through his company SpaceX, says that his company SpaceX that does space research gets a lot of mandate, gets a lot of subsidies from the government. So that's it about Donald Trump wants gasoline to be the fuel of choice for cars. And of course, another top story: Russia-Ukraine peace deal. Russia-Ukraine peace deal is in turmoil. Of course, Russia says it will stop the war when Ukraine seizes control of its eastern region, that is Donetsk region. And of course, you have Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky saying he will not cede to that demand. You have Volodymyr Zelensky saying he will not cede to that demand. That is basically twisting Ukraine to give up its sovereign land. And I think among the generals and basically Ukraine population, they are opposed to ceding more land to Ukraine. Remember, they gave up Crimea in 2014. So basically, Russia wants another region of Ukraine, and of course, then Ukraine says it will not cede another land to Russia. Of course, Donald Trump is seen as a friend of Putin, and of course, only recently has he come and then, of course, saying he will supply weapons to Ukraine, and of course, this angered his MAGA base that doesn't want forever wars. Remember, part of the reason Donald Trump supporters love him is because he is seeking peace deals instead of engaging American troops. A lot of that is why a lot of Americans, a lot of supporters of Donald Trump voted for him because he is seeking peace deals abroad. Because remember, Donald Trump has ended at least 8 wars. Of course, not drawing America into that, but of course, in Russia and Ukraine, Donald Trump, America is going to supply Ukraine with aid, basically more of it, not in cash, but in supplying Ukraine with the needed weapons. And of course, this has angered Donald Trump's MAGA base. So, of course, that is Russia, Ukraine peace deal. Of course, you had Russia claiming that Ukraine is a Biden client state, that is, they were constructing nuclear that NATO was constructing nuclear weapons in eastern Ukraine at the border with Russia, and of course that Russia saw that as an aggression towards its sovereignty, its sovereignty. That is, Ukraine was constructing, that is, NATO was building nuclear war armament in the doorstep of Russia, and of course for Russia, they say this is simple and acceptable. Remember, in the first term, Kremlin celebrated when Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. They didn't want Hillary Clinton. Remember, Hillary Clinton said that American values are universal values. That's what Hillary Clinton said. She said that is American values are universal values. So basically, for Hillary Clinton and the liberal order, they consider a one world where America is leading, but then American values being a universal values that angered a lot of opponents in Russia and maybe even China. So basically, of course, you have Russia celebrated in 2016 when Donald Trump won against Hillary Clinton, but I think that celebration soon died down. Of course, there is the Russia hopes that Russia helped Donald Trump ascend to power in 2016. That is the election systems of America were interfered with, and so of course you saw Russia basically coming you saw Russia basically helping Donald Trump get elected. Of course, Donald Trump has termed that as a hoax for Democrats diverting their loss towards Russia. They say Democrats are so losers, that is, Democrats are bad losers. So, of course, that is it for Russia, Ukraine peace deal. And of course, you have the journalist Tucker Carlson, one of the most influential conservative commentators in America, Tucker Carlson even do an interview with Vladimir Putin. And of course, remember for Donald Trump, he admires dictators. Donald Trump admires dictators. He when asked by his friend journalist Sean Hannity whether he will abuse power, Donald Trump said only on day one. That is what Donald Trump said. only on day one. And so basically, and that means that Donald Trump admires dictators, and of course, he might not say it aloud, but I think in his hearts of hearts, Donald Trump admires Vladimir Putin, the way he has a strong hold of his country, and of course, Donald Trump wants to see that, and of course, you have now America sliding into an age of authoritarianism under Donald Trump. Of course, you have America sliding into an age of authoritarianism under Donald Trump. And so, of course, that means that Donald Trump is going to bring some kind of authoritarianism to America. And so that's something that we are going to be looking at. And I think that's something that we really, that is something that I think we need to look at. Basically, whether Donald Trump really, holds Putin in high regard. And so, of course, that is it about Russia-Ukraine peace deal. And of course, and then another daily wrap, another news that is of importance today. Taiwan's opposition leader turns towards China. That is, Taiwan's opposition leader turns towards China. Of course, China says that Taiwan is a renegade province that should be reunited with the mainland China at some point in the future. That is what, China says. That is, Taiwan is a renegade province that should be reunited with China at the at some point in the future using military force if need be. So of course you have this Taiwan opposition leader saying maybe they should repair relations with mainland China. Of course, you had in 1948 when the nationalists lost out to the communists, they fled to Taiwan. So of course, and now you have a Chinese president that is President Xi Jinping saying Taiwan is a province of China and should be reunited with China at some point in the future. So basically, that's it about Trump. That is Taiwan opposition leader turning towards China. So of course, that's it for now. I have looked at the top stories in America. That is Trump calling Somalis ethnic Somalis garbage, and of course that refers to any other immigrant group that is not white. Then you have Trump conducting ethnic cleansing. The White House is conducting ethnic cleansing, wanting America to be an only white nation. And remember, this is not unique to Trump alone. Even Abraham Lincoln, even though he is labeled as the most consequential American president of all time, basically Ronald Reagan, the 16th president of America, he basically wanted a white America, even as he ended slavery. That is Abraham Lincoln. Even as he ended slavery, he wanted America to be a white-only country, and of course, you had a plan to deport African Americans back to Africa. Of course, then that plan flopped, and of course, they created Liberia they created Liberia where freed African slaves could run to, and of course, some slaves came over to Liberia where they formed the ruling class. So of course, you have Abraham Lincoln, even though he is touted as the most consequential president, as the most admired president of America of all time, basically, then you have him saying that America should. You have Abraham Lincoln saying America should be a white-only country, and I think that is what Donald Trump is pursuing. So I don't know what will be the future of immigration in America, but let's wait and see to see whether ethnic minorities will have a place in America. Right now, there is a lot of fear. A lot of them are working with papers, as you could have the police deport you at any moment. But I think America really needs to be a melting pot of cultures, a melting pot of ideas. That's what strengthens America. That is what makes America great again. And of course, that is going to be the way that America will find its true north. America will find its true north by bringing scheming talent from across the world, and then they come over to America and they renew America. Remember the Chinese American Eric Yuan, the Chinese American Eric Yuan. He had you had the Chinese American Eric Yuan. He applied for the U.S. passport a record 7 times before he won it at the 8th attempt. That is Eric Yuan. Eric Yuan applied for the Chinese passport for the American passport a record 7 times. He got it only at the 8th attempt, and that is how he came over to America and founded Zoom, which is a powerful video conferencing. So basically, I think for the most part, immigrants add a lot of vitality to America. I think it is time that we resorted to a merit-based immigration. So that's it for now. That's it for now. Bye for now. This is the daily wrap from Mabinda TV. Bye for now.